So the spread, first of all, was the difference between the ask and the bid. So we could always calculate it as ask minus bid. So again, if I had USD over GBP and it said 135-136, my market maker is buying pounds at 135, selling pounds at $136. So is keeping the differential, which is $0.1 for every pound that he buys and sells. So the spread is the profit earned by the dealer. And I always tell people, even in those exchange bureaus that advertise zero commissions, this is never true, because remember, the spread itself is a commission that you're paying every time you have to trade. Now, dealers, so the dealers are the market makers, the dealers are the banks with which you transact as a retail investor. But these big dealers, these big investment banks themselves transact in what's called the interbank market. So the interbank market will have the tightest spreads. So if you go on Google and type in the euro-dollar pair, for example, it will give you the interbank exchange rate. So this is the most favorable exchange rate you could possibly get. But of course, you have to be a dealer or a large investment bank to get that. Now, when the dealer offers bid and ask quotes to you as the retail, is going to determine that based on the interbank spread. So one thing that determines the dealer spread is the spread that he gets in the interbank market. And that makes perfect sense, right? So if he gets charged a bigger spread, then he needs to pass an even bigger spread to you in order to make money. Okay, the second thing is transaction size. And here you could get asked, which transaction size will cause the spread to be bigger? So would a small transaction size cause a bigger spread, or will a large transaction size cause a bigger spread? Now pause the video here. Think about that. And if you are telling me that a larger transaction will give me a bigger spread, give yourself a pat on the shoulder. Okay, why is that happening? You might, some people mistakenly think that larger transactions are associated with more liquidity, but that's not the case here, because a larger transaction, so if I go to the dealer with $10 million, that is riskier to the dealer because he needs to find counterparties to offset that $10 million that I'm selling to him, right? So remember, he's not going to be searching for a directional trade here. He's not going to want to take a position on the dollar. He's simply going to be an intermediary between the buyer and the seller. So if I bring him $10 million, it's going to be harder for this dealer to find an offsetting trade. If I bring him $10, it's not a problem. He can give me the tightest possible spread because it's very easy to offset $10. And the third point, of course, is client relationship. This really is true in any business, isn't it, guys? So if you've got a large client that you need to please because this client is a big percentage of your total revenues, well, then maybe you will treat them better. You'll give them more attractive spreads. Okay, now, so that was to do with the dealer spreads. Now, turning our attention to the interbank spreads. So what determines these spreads that the large investment banks have to pay to each other? So the first thing is what a currency pair we are trading. So if it's the euro dollar, something involving pounds, yen, Swiss francs, these tend to be very, very liquid pairs. So you're going to get a tighter spread on more liquid pairs. If, however, it involved some less common currency, Nigerian naira, Turkish lira, something like that, obviously they are not as liquidly traded as the euro and the pound and the dollar, so they will command a higher spread. Then you look at time of the day. So the tip here is if you get any question that involves times, they might give you Eastern times typically, right? Remember, you are looking for a time of the day when the majority of the major financial centers are open. Okay, so which are the major financial centers? So you could think New York, right, in America, London in Europe, right, Frankfurt, something like that, and then you've got maybe Tokyo in Asia. So you want to find a time of the day when at least two markets, well, I don't know if three can be open, but at least two major markets are open. So, for example, if it's 2 p.m. in London, that's maybe, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning in New York. So both the New York and the London markets are open. So that's going to give you the tightest spreads. If it is a very weird time of the day, maybe, I don't know, Friday night when nobody is trading, you might find that the spreads are much wider. The third item is the volatility of the pair. Remember, volatility measured, I guess, by looking at standard deviation. If you've got higher standard deviation on this pair, on the movements in the pair, that creates more risk for the investment banks, for these dealers, for these market makers. So to essentially compensate themselves for this greater risk, they will charge you a greater spread, or at least they will charge themselves, each other, a greater spread in the interbank market, and then that interbank spread will then be passed on to the retail spreads as well. Also, if they mention anything to do with maturity, now maturity is to do with forward contracts. Remember, 30-day in the future, 60, 90-day in the future. You will also have to be able to tell them that spreads are going to be a function of maturity. They will increase with maturity. Why? Well, because longer dated forward contracts are less common and less traded, so they lack liquidity. Whenever a contract is illiquid, its spread must go up. And secondly, remember, a forward contract involves the credit risk of your counterparty, right? What if they don't pay me? So that credit risk is bigger for longer dated contracts. And that again means higher risk will increase the spread of that currency.